So let's talk about the story behind the final entry in one of the most famous diaries ever written. What actually happened in those quiet moments right after the pen was put down for the very last time?
These are the last words Anne Frank would ever write down, August 1st, 1944. And her final entry wasn't about the war. It wasn't about fear. No, it was about the person she was trying to become. A struggle that's so universal, so deeply human. Just an incredibly intimate final thought from a girl right on the edge of womanhood. And that's what's so incredible about this last entry. It was so full of introspection, all focused on the future. It gave absolutely no warning, not a single hint of the tragedy that was about to unfold just 3 days later. The speed of it all is just breathtaking. On August 1st, she's writing. The next 2 days are, well, just like the hundreds of days before. And then, on August 4th, everything just shatters. A world they had built over 25 months of secrecy, gone in an instant. And that, right there, that's the heart of the tragedy. She was completely unaware. She believed she had a future to write about, a whole life to live. She had no idea that her story, the one she was writing in her own hand, was about to be torn away from her. That quiet life of reflection was about to be so violently interrupted. For 25 months, the secret annex was a sanctuary, and in just a few minutes, it would all be exposed. It started with this, the one single barrier between their hidden world and all the dangers outside, breached. Can you just imagine the sound of that bookcase moving, revealing the very people it was meant to protect? And then, the outside world just rushed in. The raid by Nazi officers and Dutch collaborators was swift, violent, completely disorienting. The sound of those boots on the floorboards must have been absolutely terrifying after years of forced silence. In all that chaos, the small sense of home they had managed to build was just destroyed. And this wasn't just a physical mess, it was the symbolic shattering of their fragile, hidden existence. You know, the abstract fear they had lived with for over 2 years suddenly had a face. It was no longer just a threat on the radio or some worry in the dark. It was right there, in the room with them. Now, in the middle of all this violence and panic, something absolutely pivotal happened. The focus of our story, the diary itself, well, it met its own fate. As Anne and the others were pulled from their rooms, the diary, with all her hopes, her frustrations, her observations, was left behind, just discarded on the floor with all the other debris. Her physical story was ending, but her written legacy was, by some incredible twist of fate, just beginning. And with that, her hand would never write another word. This is the moment her own account of her life ends. It's stark, it's sudden, it's final. But that ending, well, it wasn't the end. The tragedy of her arrest actually gave way to something that no one, least of all Anne herself, could have ever predicted. The physical act of writing stopped, sure, but her voice, the spirit, the intelligence, the humanity captured on those pages, that did not stop. Oh no, it would go on to speak to millions. The tragedy of it is almost unbearable to think about. A brilliant young writer, a person so full of life and dreams, was denied the very future she so often wrote about. And so we're left with this question, aren't we? Anne Frank's story didn't end on August 4th, 1944. In so many ways, that's when it began. It really makes you wonder about the incredible power of words to transcend even the most tragic endings, giving a voice to a life that was silenced far, far too soon.